In the year 742 AD, the Tang Dynasty was the most powerful civilization on Earth. Its capital, Chang'an, had over 1 million people. The emperor's court hosted ambassadors from Persia, Japan, Arabia, and Rome. Scholars still call this era China's Golden Age. 13 years later, that same city was a ruin. Somewhere between 13 and 36 million people, dead or displaced. Most history books will tell you this was a rebellion, a general turned traitor, an emperor distracted by love. That's not wrong, but it's not the whole story. Because before a single soldier crossed a single border, there was a spy network operating inside the palace for over a decade. And once you understand how it worked, you'll understand not just how the Tang Dynasty fell, but why it was always going to. Act 1. The man nobody should have trusted. His name was Lushan. By the 740s, he controlled 3 frontier military districts simultaneously: Fanyang, Pinglu, and Heidong. Between them, roughly 160,000 soldiers. That should have made him a clear threat. A chancellor named Zhang Juling told the emperor directly, "This man is dangerous. Remove him now." The emperor didn't listen. Why not? Because Lushan had been curating his image at court for years with almost surgical precision. He performed court dances, which, given that he reportedly weighed over 300 pounds, was both ridiculous and endearing, and he absolutely knew it. He called Yang Guifei, the emperor's beloved concubine, his adopted mother. She loved him. The emperor loved her, and so the emperor loved Lushan. But there was another version of Lushan that almost nobody at court ever saw. Lushan was of mixed Sogdian, Sute, and Turkic origin. And this matters because the Sute people were the greatest merchant diplomat network in the medieval world, operating along every branch of the Silk Road. They moved information the same way they move silk, quietly, across vast distances, through people no one was watching. His provincial headquarters at Fanyang received commercial traffic, diplomatic messengers, and traveling merchants continuously. Through them, a steady feed of intelligence. Who was loyal to the emperor? Who was dissatisfied? What the court was planning? What it was afraid of? While the emperor watched the dancer was watching everyone else. Act 2. The open loop. How he always knew. Here's something most accounts of the Lushan rebellion skim right past. The warnings. There were many of them, over years, from multiple people. Zhang Juling warned the emperor. A general named Wang Zhongxi refused to work with Lushan and said publicly he didn't trust him. A palace official accused Lushan of plotting in 751. Every single time, and Lushan found out, every single time, the accuser was discredited, demoted, or removed. How? Because Lushan had sources inside the palace itself, and the most likely conduits were the Huanguan, the eunuch administrators who managed imperial communications. By the mid-Tang Zhao, Huanguan read memorials before the emperor did. They controlled access. Some of them were feeding information outward. The Tang Dynasty had built one of the most efficient bureaucracies in human history, and Lushan had learned to read it like a newspaper. By 754, the emperor's most powerful chancellor was Yang Guozhong, Yang Guifei's cousin, a man Lushan despised and who despised him back. Yang Guozhong kept pushing the emperor to act. But by then, Lushan's intelligence network had already told him everything he needed to know. The emperor was old and distracted. The army was unprepared. The court was fractured. The moment was close. On the 16th day of the 12th month, 755 AD, Lushan declared himself emperor of a new dynasty, the Yan Dynasty, and marched south with 150,000 men. The Tang capital fell within months. Tang Xuanzong fled in the night. Yang Guifei was killed by his own royal guard on the road. They refused to march further until she was gone, blaming her family for the catastrophe. The rebellion Lushan started would take 8 years to suppress, and the Tang Dynasty would never, not once for the remaining 150 years of its existence, recover the authority it had before that night. Act 3. What the rebellion actually unleashed. Now here's where it gets more complicated and more interesting. And Lushan didn't live to see his rebellion succeed. His own son had him murdered in 757. The Yan Dynasty, he declared, collapsed almost immediately. The Tang technically won, but winning that war required something that would doom the Tang Dynasty just as surely as losing it. They had to hand military power to regional governors, the Jiedushi, in exchange for their help. They let warlords keep the armies they'd built, and they could never take them back. The intelligence lesson had been absorbed, but by the wrong people. After the rebellion, the Huanguan expanded their power dramatically. They now commanded the palace armies, the Shenjejun. They were running a permanent internal surveillance apparatus aimed at protecting their own position. Emperors were made and deposed by Huangguan for the next century. A second massive rebellion, the Huangchao Rebellion, starting in 874, finished what An Lushan started. A rebel army occupied Chang'an for years. The city that once held 1 million people was reportedly so devastated that wolves hunted in its streets. In 907, a warlord named Zhu Wen, a former rebel who had switched sides and learned every lesson the previous century of treachery had to teach, forced the last emperor of the Tang Dynasty to abdicate. The emperor was 14 years old. 300 years, done. So what actually killed the Tang Dynasty? It wasn't the betrayal of one general. It wasn't the emperor's love affair. Those are the memorable details, and history loves memorable details. What killed the Tang Dynasty was a structural vulnerability that An Lushan's network merely exploited. An empire that had centralized power so effectively had also created a single point of failure. Control the flow of information, and you controlled the emperor. Control the emperor, and you controlled everything. An Lushan understood this before the court did. The Huangguan understood it and used it for a century. The warlords who followed understood it, and by the time the Tang figured it out, the empire was already hollow. China would reunite under the Songzhao in 960, but what the Chinese state became after the Tang Dynasty, more cautious, more inward-looking, more suspicious of military men, was shaped directly by the wound An Lushan opened in 755. One spy network, one emperor who didn't want to see it, and an empire that never quite trusted itself again. The Sute merchant network that gave An Lushan his edge shows up in at least 3 other places where empires collapsed, and almost nobody covers it. If this was worth your time, the algorithm notices when you tell it so. See you in the next one.